Welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. So we're still exploring Grand Pulse, because once again, Teo is very concerned that there's a lot of sieve stones around here, so gotta take care of that.
And you know what, to be fair, this is probably some of the best content in the game.
That's sad.
And it's side material stuff.
That's sad.
I think there's, this next scene is with Fang and Vanille.
This is another of the optional cutscenes.
Oh no, this is with Saz,
Also Saz,
Fang, and Vanille.
When we were young, we were always taught that someday we'd be attacked by the demons.
Fang over here.
And look
Oh,
at us now.
and Hope's here as well.
Listen back into Erba, with the very people we were chosen to take up arms against.
That's what we grown-ups call irony.
Never would have helped you guys. Oh.
Well, right. Back then is when you got your first focus, so...
Right. We already talked a bit about that.
Saz's afro wiggling like that.
You know, I just realized something.
Got a chocobo in there, a little tiny chicken.
But I just realized something. Vanille is concerningly thin. Like, seriously, look at her. She's fucking skin and bones. Like, I just noticed this right now. I know this is like a really weird realization to have in the middle of a recording, but I just realized this right now looking at her. Like, what the
there is
fuck?
a war going on.
Pretty fuzzy.
I mean, but Fang's more muscular.
Oh well, Fang is a dragoon, so obviously it would make more sense for her to be more physically fit. But Vanille looks like skin and bones. Look at her; she's fucking olive oil. She's what she is like.
Oh, and there's lightning. Seriously, characters are just showing up from.
Oh look, guys! Oh look, guys! Vanille is sad. That almost never happens in this game.
So many people.
Yes, it is your fault. Too bad you will never get any comeuppance for it. But
Hold on. Is this one specific thing her fault? Because she's at fault for a lot of stuff.
Pick one, Jova. Pick one.
Yeah, it was Vanille's fault that I kicked my foot on the wall by accident.
Sure, why not? Works for me.
This is basically just foreshadowing for an event which we'll see probably in the next part.
It was Vanille's fault that Jova got splashed by that car driving too fast on a puddle.
Mm-hmm. No, it's Professor Zoom's fault, actually.
Okay.
Every time something bad happens in my day, I'm just
Vanille.
gonna say, well, fuck Vanille.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it
Oh,
was Vanille's fault.
well, actually, she will remember. The ending of this trilogy dictates that lightning created the world we live in. So technically, everything bad that has ever happened in the world is technically lightning's fault.
I love how even in the creepy ruins with the zombies shuddering around and everything, we still have the happy-go-lucky music going for us.
Like I said, I really like this dungeon theme.
You see, Shiro, you can blame lightning for, let's say, Fantastic Beasts, and it would be canon in this universe, actually.
Okay,
So
this particular mission introduces a particular type of enemy, specifically a group of cie'th that are attached to, again, they have a very specific group. In the English version, they're called the Undying, but they can't actually translate directly the Georgian-Japanese term, which means, the Generals of Death. Basically, an elite group. I think there we are about to get to them.
the Undying are fearsome cie'th who, cursing their former fal'Cie masters for forsaking them at the end of their forced servitude, alliteration for the win, refuse to surrender their connection to this world. Whereas normal cie'th eventually cease their wanderings and turn to stone, the Undying rage on, fueled by a jealous hatred of all living things. Retaining the defiant strength of will they do in life, they act on instinct, doling out death and destruction to all that cross their path. So
Basically, elite hunt marks. We will not see all of them because a couple require a bit of, contractual conditions, and they do offer not much of that requires of interest, but a couple are actually interesting enough to check them out.
Essentially, super bosses.
So basically, the Undying are very similar to the bad side of the Souls fan base. Okay.
But their gimmick also is the fact that they have names which reflect generals and kings who actually fought against the Roman civilization in all of its ages. Again, it's just a gimmick that they have.
I like this dungeon theme, but I wonder if maybe they should have switched to a more creepy tune since we're in the ruins and there's all these undead shambling about. Maybe we're supposed to not think too much about it.
That's the thing, Jova. That's the thing, Jova. The point of these ruins is not so much for it to be creepy. It's more so, okay, the primary theme with Werba, sorry, not Werba, we're not at Werba here. The primary here with Pulse is that we're seeing the lost civilization of Pulse people that now doesn't exist anymore. So we're seeing the ruins of a long lost civilization right here in front of us. Basically, it's one of the... okay, hold on. I'll wait till the boss starts. Well, actually, technically, there's no dialogue in this scene, so...
This is Bituitus. Sorry, go on.
Nah, that's okay. The basic gist of it, Joe, is that, like, the best bit, the part of the storytelling in this game is actually in this chapter, because a lot of the storytelling regarding Pulse is actually done through environmental cues in the scenery rather than dialogue. There's the cutscenes here and there, yeah, like we just saw, but most of it is purely for the environment. Like, for example, throughout this entire game, we've talked about how the people of Cocoon feared Pulse because it's full of horrible creatures and horrible people who want to attack us. Turns out Pulse's civilization doesn't even exist. This is just a desert full of monsters. So all this time, Cocoon has been living in fear of an enemy that doesn't even exist anymore.
It's part of their propaganda machine also. It's kind of classic in terms of dystopic future, the idea of maintain the idea of a public enemy just so that the people will be subservient to your rule. Okay, this is admittedly a bit weird, because when you defeat Bituitus, he goes into that mechanism, which activates with those couple of cie'th stones, and goes into a cocoon shape. Way later on, when you actually have beaten pretty much almost all of the missions, you get to fight him again, although he's in a new form, which is called Vercingetorix, which is considered one of the, if not the most powerful, hunt in the entire game. But again, the game treats them as very separate entities, while in reality it's just the same enemy, which has evolved or transitioned into a different kind of state. So it's a bit weird overall.
Yes, what's the guy we just beat his name again too? Sorry, could you repeat?
Bituitus. His
okay,
name
Bituitus
through a Gaul king.
So basically, what you're saying is what Bituitus is involving. Bituitus is involved into Vercingetorix.
Hold on, an ancient civilization tomb area that we show up in. Okay, I know it shows up in JRPGs, so this place does remind me of that tomb area from Final Fantasy VII, and the knack of trying to one-up 7. I'm counting it. That's not to say it's bad per se. If anything, this is probably the most Final Fantasy feeling this game has been.
Basically.
Again, I just find it a bit weird that they keep the music so happy-go-lucky, even though we're technically going
It's
across
funny, Joe, because if you remember, they kind of addressed that technically in 13.2, which has a normal dungeon theme, but when you're in the danger part, as in you're close to an enemy, for example, the game, the soundtrack actually shifts into a more aggressive and potentially more, tense one.
For me, it's just...
someone had the same complaints as you.
I honestly have no understanding of why, up until Final Fantasy VII Remake, Mauzo, for whatever reason, had some kind of irrational fear of the Final Fantasy Victory Fanfare. Because even World of Final Fantasy doesn't have it. That game of all games should be your chance to finally...
I know, right?
And yet, for some reason, you still feel the need to create a new one. And I don't understand, why can't you just remix the classic one? Like,
did you think it was too silly to listen to or something?
No. Okay, I can kinda let that fly in this game, in game Jova, but in World of Final Fantasy that makes no sense because that game is a comedy. So that excuses
that game is a celebration of the entire franchise, and as established by things like Dissidia. Hold on, this is also actually important.
I won't. I know my limits, unlike some people.
Oh, now who's the tough guy?
Oh, it's you again.
Again.
What was that?
If you this is basically the game kind of giving you a helping hand and saying if you're being dwindling too much around, it gives you a general idea of what the characters are doing.
don't know if it's just me, but for some reason the models in this cutscene seem a bit more stiffer than usual.
That's because, Jova, this game actually has two sets of character models. One made for the more elaborate cutscenes, and one's for these are more like these cutscenes that are just used basic animation rigs rather than being mocapped. Basically, there's two.
We haven't really gotten as many of these cutscenes as often, so here it's more noticeable.
Yeah, it's more basically the game. This actually is something that a lot of games back in this generation of consoles did a lot. Anyway, the hotcut resides in the Titian's Tower. This Grand Pulse Falsi soars for the sky with an ease that seems almost uncanny given the bulk of its form. Although the majority of Falsi on Grand Pulse dedicate themselves to terraforming or their tasks of environmental modification, Tahaka does not do anything of the sort. Plausible conjectures as to the nature of the flying Falsi duty include some manner of aerial monitoring for the search for something they haven't. So basically, he's the guard. He's the security guard of Pulse, basically.
But in this particular state, he has become kind of a parasite.
Yeah, like he's pretty much just, oh, well, you see, I'm totally looking around, guys. It's not like I'm just lazing about on my duty.
Basically.
Okay, so maybe I saw some humans going about, but I'm sure they won't cause any trouble. What?
But yeah, this was a common thing back in this particular generation of consoles where they would have a model for the gameplay bits and a higher poly model for the cutscenes. The Uncharted games did this too. I think, in fact, a lot of Theo, remind me.
A lot of Square games did that. For example, Dissidia also has a set of different types of cutscene, in regards to.
Anyway, the sieve palings. These sieve stones, specifically red ones, block roads and pathways all across Grand Pulse. Complete the mission of the sieve stone near them, and they will dissipate. Be warned that the marks for these missions are formidable foes, and you need not slay them all. Should you decide to undertake one of these missions, be prepared for a grievous challenge. Nah, I'm cool, thanks.
But yeah, it is a bit weird considering other games that have been celebration of the franchise, like Dissidia or Record Keeper for that matter. They do feature their own personal version of a victory fanfare,
exactly,
based on the original.
That's the thing. Remember, allow me to recap too. In this game, which was Amazu's first big break as the main composer of a mainline game, because remember, in 10 he was just assisting Uematsu. So he goes, which is what? In the second and 13-2's Victory Fanfare is the most boring shit I've ever heard in my life.
I can tell you that one is apparently reported to have been composed instead by Naoshi Mizuta instead.
Even so, he was still the lead composer of that game, so he did give the sign off on that. So,
Dwibs, let me tell you, you're in for quite an unusual experience when we get around to redoing 13-2.
The point is, to his credit, in Lightning Returns, he did provide an original Victory Fanfare that was actually okay. I find that Victory Fanfare fine. I still would have preferred the classic one, but it's fine. And again, and of all of his original Victory Fanfares, the one World of Final Fantasy is actually his best, I will argue. It's a pretty good Victory Fanfare. It's just that, why don't you just use the old one? Why is it that you insist on not using this one? I'm honestly wondering right now if Nomura and Amaguchi had to turn to Amazu when he was composing for 7 Remake. Look, it's time. Put in the classic fanfare, or so help me God, Amazu.
Can you imagine if they that much just in the Colosseum arena?
Can you imagine if they had left it completely out of the 7 Remake? I mean, don't get me wrong, the 7 Remake Part 1 was pretty good still, but
like you said, it's not even used that much.
It's more so.
At least it's there, though.
I get the feeling Amazu really wants really hard. Again, he's okay. I get the feeling both Amazu's in the same place as Kitase. Amazu really doesn't want to be beholden to the shadow of his predecessor. He really doesn't want to just, he really wants to create his own iconic themes that are beloved and iconic on their own.
So how ironic is it that his most beloved soundtrack to date is probably the one that's essentially a remake?
It's one of those things where, dude, look, it's okay. You can still deliver a great original tracks on your own. Nobody's. I feel like you're putting yourself a bit too much pressure on yourself, dude.
kind of a bit of an issue with Square themselves, where they really do want to outdo themselves.
For the record, Mobius instead did not even add a victory fanfare.
Alright.
Yeah, well, that's deliciously creepy.
Alright, this
is Case Eric.
See no evil.
Let me see who is based upon. A king of the Vandals, a particular tribe of barbarians. I think from the current Eastern Germany.
It looks like
he's a delinquent.
It looks like if Beast from X-Men went on steroids.
Okay, again, the aggression paradigm shift is the best one to use with him, because thanks to Hope's little magic bursts, you can basically juggle him internally, and as a result, you'll basically stun lock him and make this battle a joke, basically.
They're pretty much the best team to have are mainly Lightning, Hope, and Fang.
There you go, see, I even reached maximum stagger. There you go.
There you go.
Lightning for the big hit.
As you can see, the juggling is very easy to abuse.
Basically, Lightning covers the majority of the damage, Hope covers the majority of the effects, and Fang's the good all-rounder backup support.
There you go. Gezerik was actually the one that led ultimately the sack of Rome, that led to the fall of the Western Roman Empire, which is in turn what led this tribe to be called, the term of vandalism because of that.
But I wanted to tell you, an asteroid.
Rest in peace.
Anyway, alright, this gives me a chance to also talk about something about specifically the way this game has of quote-unquote ramping up the difficulty, as that little tutorial bit about the cie'th pairlings was saying. See, the thing about this game is that its way of... I get the feeling the developers realize that the overall way the battle works is way too simplistic. So their way of quote-unquote ramping up the difficulty is by, one, making the super bosses gigantic, unbelievable damage sponges. Second, by basically making giving the super bosses instant kill moves. That basically force you to completely go against the way the battle system was designed to work. It's just like, it really is frustrating that the game can't really create a proper functioning difficulty curve. Alright, so Ambling Bellows. There you go.
Type of robots. But, since again we're getting another cutscene, but only a bit later, this allows me to explain also a bit a minor thing. Well, first of all, like we've seen before, defeating particular types of enemies unlock some specific areas, kind of like in a Metroidvania fashion. Defeat the boss, you get some sort of something, an object or a power-up that allows you to progress to an area that was locked before. Classic stuff, you know. In this case, it's a bit important, which will allow us to unlock something that allows us to traverse faster through the Archylte Steppe. But that allows me also to talk very shortly about, something else. We've been talking about the localization of this game, mostly for the English language. I think I did mention this in the original run, but for the sake of, being a bit more detailed, the way things were handled in my country were also their own kind of worms. If I remember correctly, it's been a long while since I actually saw the actual dialogue, but if I remember correctly, the dialogue actually sticks to translating from the English script, so we get that second pass filtering. But when it comes to actually the terms, particularly the magic, that is when things get a bit weird. Up until this point, there were two different schools of thoughts. The portable games, like the Game Boy Advance versions of, say, 4, 5, and 6, they would use a direct translation of the magic. So fire will be translating to its equivalent, for example. While on the consoles versions, they will actually still remain with the original English names, like Fire, Fira, Firaga, and so on, except from some very specific ones. Not too much arbitrarily, but some very specific, like, for example, the sleep spell. But those were kind of like more an exception than the rule. This game arrives, and for some weird reason, they decided that the new status quo is to actually, name the elemental spells with Latin names. So fire becomes Ignis, for example, which it's cool on paper, but again, it's inconsistent with what happens until this point. And they kind of stick with this ever since. 15 has this, and the 7 remake also has this. It got to the point that because one of the characters in 15 is called Ignis, they actually had to change the way the name of the fire spell works. I was like,
alright, we're gonna get a...
what the previous title did, maybe things would have gone better, but I'm done.
We're gonna get a cutscene now. Right after this flan. Alright, time for the game to mock Saz a bit more, because that's fun.
Does it do it in a good way?
No.
Well, you'll be the judge.
Well, yeah, I'll let you be the judge of that, Joe. I don't like it, see if you like it.
Wait, I know that smell.
Poop.
Chocobos, like you said, for the franchise, it's the super consistent that they stink.
Hey, you! Are you kidding me?
Jesus.
Wait.
Well, hopefully they don't beat him up.
No.
Someone get these things away.
Unlike the ones in Ivalice, these chocobos are actually more docile.
You don't like the chocobos, Shiro?
Say hi.
Hey, now this remix of a Chocobo theme actually doesn't sound too bad.
What's wrong with the chocobos, Shiro?
Growing like that, you'll be bigger than me before long, won't you?
I don't know.
Again, Shiro, just be glad these are not the ones from Ivalice.
What?
Hey, oh! Come on!
Bird up.
See, this is the problem. Even when the game tries to have some kind of comedy relief, it's just so awkward and badly timed.
And again, it's at the expense of a token black character.
So the Chocobo chick got angry because he suggested that maybe it was time to say goodbye here, even though he was just joking.
Remember,
I mean,
Jova,
I
this.
feel like it would-
Remember, Jova, this Chocobo chick is Chocobolina in the next game. So.
Whips doesn't know yet.
Yes, he does actually.
Hey,
Oh, he does?
you watching me or something? Say something.
I've told him previously, years ago.
Didn't want to interrupt. And, you know...
But yeah, no, I mean, this rendition of the Chocobo theme is nice. Did not care for how they had to ridicule Saz like that, though.
Wasn't your fault.
But Saz...
Actually, it was.
You got more than enough weight in your shoulders already. It was my fault at your day, letting Dodge out of my sight like that.
So yeah, at the very least, they do at the very least give it a chance for, again, Fang also to apologize to Saz as well, but Saz, whatever, like, what's done is done.
I don't have to. I got this guy.
Don't you mean this girl?
Again, we did not know yet. Clearly not planned at this point.
No, okay, no, he's basically making the point that, look, I have this Chocobo to, and you have Vanille.
Well, don't give up. You're getting the hang of it.
Okay, the whole ridiculing of Saz at first, this scene is not bad. Again, why his beloved Chocobo chick suddenly started beating him up, though, that was just...
It's
the suggestion that Saz wanted to leave the Chocobo chick behind.
This is Toriyama and Watanabe suddenly going, oh right, I remember comedy. Like, it's just like...
It's nowhere near as cringy as what happens in Line Returns, thankfully.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: easier reward for beating Geyseric. You actually had to just have a simple encounter. These monsters are actually kind of weak.
And then, let me guess, we beat them and then we get to ride this Chocobo chick across the land.
Well, actually, the Chocobo, the chicks are the little ones, but yeah. Yeah, like Teo said, this is easy as piss battle, so...
The Sahakis in these games are fairly easy.
I'm not really too fond of this particular version.
This is the one we have heard before on Pulse, but it's just for this battle. When it comes to... from Cocoon, sorry. When it comes to the Chocobos on Pulse, we stick to the ones that we heard in the cutscene.
That one's better.
A few minutes later and you'd have been plucked.
Yeah. See, guys, I am using all the Final Fantasy themes.
These
You happy now?
chocobos are majestic yellow birds that allow you to cover great distances that you could on foot, only a fraction of the time. There are also locations that only chocobos can reach, indicated by swirling yellow indicators on the ground for your convenience. To mount a chocobo, approach it and press A. So, yeah, like the game just... chocobos are courageous creatures, but even they have their limits. Come into contact with an enemy while riding, and the chocobo will lose 1 unit of morale. Should the chocobo lose all of its morale, it will throw its rider and flee, like a coward. Otherwise, lost morale will gradually return, so long as no more close encounters occur. Chocobos also possess an uncanny knack for detecting buried treasure. When you pass near hidden treasure or a chocobo, an icon will appear above the bird's head. The closer you come to the treasure, the faster... Oh, look at that! They remembered Final Fantasy IX!
Yeah.
Once you have discerned the treasure's location, press A to dig it up. Trust me, back in this particular era of Square Enix, them remembering Final Fantasy IX was a miracle.
Also, don't get too excited because the stuff that you find is mostly just junk.
Yeah, don't bother with it. Trust me, it's...
Like, it's a cool...
Hey, at least the chocobo can help us get around
quicker. I
quicker.
will not throw it away, but I just wish it was a bit more developed.
Look at the bright side, guys. At least chocobos can help us get around quicker, right? This'll come in handy.
Well, to be fair, actually, yes. To be fair, traveling the large area of Pulse with the chocobos makes it way easier and way faster. That way, in fact, if I remember correctly, I think I foreshadowed this at the end of the previous part. Okay, Shiroi. For the next cutscene, okay, fine. Okay, so you're not a fan of the chocobos. Time to meet this universe's sheep and get some wool out of them. So,
yay.
Let's see if
they're fine. It's just
you don't like the noise they made right there.
Kinda.
Okay.
I'm guessing you're not a bird fan, Shiroi.
No, she's more of a cat/dog person.
Considering I live in an area that has some of the worst kind of birds imaginable.
That would do it.
But look at it this way, Shiroi. Let's at the very least give some credit. There are giant yellow chickens that can be used for combat, even as the
horses.
Not just that, they can be used for combat like in the same way horses would. For example, there's actually, if I remember correctly, wasn't 10 the first one to have chocobos be used as an equivalent for combat horses, basically.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Ivalice games will also adopt that, but more later than that. Not technically was the first of that.
Ooh, do you want to go and fight one of those dinosaurs?
No.
That's a turtle, Jova.
Turtle dinosaur.
It's like, okay, to Jova's credit, I can understand because their feet. Yeah, the design of that particular monster, it feels like a combination of it. Like the feet definitely look like a brontosaurus feet. So it's
also Shiroi. Shiroi, just be glad that they look cute and fluffy because I'm about to post it now. But originally, when Yoshitaka Amano was asked to make a concept art for them when they premiered in Final Fantasy II, this is what he came up with. Very Mobius-esque.
Link
French inspired.
Have a link in it.
Sure.
Check the description for a link for it, everybody.
Yeah, I'll just post it because again, it's one of the more notorious artworks for Romano. At the end of the day, they stuck instead from actually have plumages, but again,
somebody plucked that poor bird's feathers.
So yeah, believe it or not, Shiroi. Shiroi. Believe it or not, this was actually the better idea for the design because
it's much better.
And again, while the sequel, while Pretty to Wool also kind of almost what I'm about to say, at least for the most part of the saga, they're actually dogs.
Also, giant hedgehogs.
Yes.
Like
when it comes for some masochistic kind of reason, Matsuno. When starting with the first Tactics game, but pretty much all of the Ivalice subsequent games, decided, hey, you know what's a good idea? Let's have chocobos as regular enemies. After all, we're kind of like wild monsters, so good process. But then someone in the team was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we have, the chocobos being some of the most overpowered enemies in the game? So essentially, if you ask any tactics fan like me, what's one of the most dreaded fears that you can have? just mentioning something like red chocobo is enough to make someone scream in terror. Because
Is it from the theme?
No. They're attack Jova. They're very strong and very fast, and we know to spam a meteor attack. But we're about to get.
Imagine every time you had to fight when you heard.
Also, chocobo's ass.
All right, let's get some sheep.
Imagine if every time you fought a red chocobo, you had to also hear its theme song from 13.
Okay, so basically, in this particular area, we can actually get near these sheep, and actually a prompt will show up to examine them. So let's see what happens.
It appears that they have a lot of wool on them.
They have not been trimmed for some time.
That's okay. Vanille is about to do it.
Don't get mad.
By yanking it?
What the fuck?
That's not how you do that.
I don't think the sheep is caring.
Hold on.
Just mean it.
Oh no!
And you kill. Oh, okay. Never mind.
It's fine.
I hope it kicks in.
Did you see the face that the sheep made? Like, seriously, man? Like, it's just like.
They look like yetis.
Have you not heard of Clippers,
See?
woman? Jesus.
You see why I hate Vanille? Now she's mistreating animals. See?
You're supposed to shear sheep, not
Depending, just rip the shit off.
Maybe she read the instructions back.
Depending on the weather conditions, you will get different types of wool, which acts as a particular type of loot. If I recall correctly, it's required if you want to evolve some specific weapons.
I want to emphasize that this character who's part of the main cast and we're supposed to like is an animal abuser. So.
She's not an animal abuser. She's just an idiot.
Also, this.
Is that any better, Shiroi? Is it?
One thing that this game does is to incorporate a couple of the classic Final Fantasy monsters which hadn't showed up for a long while. There are no more Boros in this game, believe it or not, but instead what we have here is the Ochu. And believe it or not, Square has stuck with this design for actually a while. It does show up in a couple of other games where the Ochu appears.
Oh, look!
So,
honestly, to me, it just looks like Emperor Bulblax's Emperor Bulblax's Asian cousin or something. I just like.
So sorry, Hope. We're doing just the opposite of laying low around it.
The Ochu, again, don't let this fight making you believe this fight is actually easy under quote-unquote normal conditions. The tactic of the Ochu is to spam those add-ons, the Microchu, and if we're not present, it keeps spamming them. But if we're present, it then starts terrorizing the rest of the party using like a scream attack, which inflicts a lot of damage and also has some debuffs. It's not the toughest enemy in the game, but it's required for you to actually very high level in terms of actually dealing with it.
My basic idea is that as long as you keep yourself healed up, just keep hitting him. As you can see, you don't even need to stagger him. Fortunately, this one is not a damage sponge. As long as you keep yourself alive, eventually he'll fall. There you go.
I also absolutely love the actual sounds that the Microchus actually do. They're so adorable and yet so deadly.
Oh no, I'm critical health. Okay, that's okay. There you go. Well, that was that. Back to attacking.
If only we had snow to spam Steel Guard.
Yeah. Don't worry, Tail. We will. We will. Okay.
The Ochu does respawn regularly, so if I recall correctly, it's this particular enemy or one of the hunt associated with that actually nets you the golden egg, the item that I did mention before, that actually allows you to double the amount of Crystarium points that you obtain after each fight.
You know what's sad, honestly? Because in our original playthrough, we kind of skipped a lot of this stuff. Technically, the first I got to see a lot of these critters was actually in 13.2.
Yeah.
Which kind of misled me to think that, oh my god, they actually made new enemies for this. Nope. just
Well, okay. To be fair,
32 still had a lot of new enemy types, so
they weren't. They were very low poly, but yeah, let's just. But what was it? Yeah. Okay. To get to add to my earlier point about the difficulty, it's it is a shame that they couldn't really go, because, especially because I mean, right now I'm in the middle of platinuming Neo: The World Ends With You on my PS4. And one of the great things about the super boss of that game is that the difficulty curve is much better designed there. Basically, in case you don't know, the game director of that series is Hiroyuki Ito. That's what he's doing right now. For those who don't know, Hiroyuki Ito is the one member of the original Final Fantasy I team that still is working at Square Enix to this day. And right now he's working under Nomura.
So what's the reward for beating one of those giant dino turtles?
Turtles, a lot of Crystalium points. A couple of them do give you like some elements like adamantite, which are very useful for leveling up and evolving weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We'll fight. We'll actually fight one. We'll actually fight one of those kinds of creatures later, Jova, in the story itself. So you'll see it.
To be fought during the story. But we're not here for actually one of those. We're here for something considerably smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cloudy.
Oh, so it's Britain.
Heh.
Lol.
Cactuar.
It's the Cactuar.
You!
Trust me, Shiroi. Now this guy is actually annoying. See?
Hey now, stop that already.
Sonic?
Gotta go faster.
Alright, that does it. Come here, you.
Why is it a cactus?
Because, Shiroi. Because.
Wait until next time, big.
Basically, Shiroi, the Cactuar is an iconic monster from the series, and yeah, this is his running thing.
Yeah, like literally a running thing.
Very, very fast and it's very evasive. Meaning that
his trademark attack, Shiroi, is an attack called 1,000 Needles, which is literally 1,000 needles thrown at you that deals exactly 1,000 damage.
So for a late game enemy, it's actually manageable because by that point your team is actually high level up enough. But for an early time, it can be actually deadly. Again, combine that with the fact that it can potentially avoid most of your attacks, and and it's very fast. So again, they can be potential nuisance. Not on par with some of the other more high level mobs like the Curl, for example, but it has a bit of a ranking.
Being a plant, it's obviously weak against fire, so if you use fire spells, you should be fine. There you go.
Yes, Jova?
About to say, he was getting bigger there.
No, not this one, but we will see a bigger one later.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, he grew in size for some reason, but... Oh, and now he's dead.
Defeating this one basically unlocks them roaming around on the map regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, looks like these two are having a standoff.
Speaking of...
So this Easter egg.
Just like how cactuses work in real life.
So go ahead to talk about it.
This thing I mentioned also in the original run, for some reason, we just implemented this feature that if you try to jiggle around with the characters like you would normally do in a video game, like say having a character roaming around in place, the character you're controlling, not just lining anyone you can control, at some point will just stop and kind of have that angry, annoyed pose. Again,
that may be the most...
It's a cute Easter egg, but I'm questioning why.
And guess what?
That might be the most emotion-filled I've seen Lightning.
Yeah, when I found out about it when I was live streaming the game.
Yeah, Dwebs actually found this out completely by accident when he was streaming. I saw it.
That's cute, I guess.
I mean, I have a problem with it. It's just a weird addition, I guess. So, okay, so to recap, we've bought a bunch of monsters, and Vanille treated a sheep badly. Nice to go, Vanille. Okay. Again, you just keep giving me reasons to hate you, don't you?
Well, productive day.
Like, seriously. So Shiroi, so I'm assuming, considering this, Vanille at this point should be outright banned from ever entering Wales?
Yeah.
Exactly. See?
Leave the sheep alone.
Persona non grata.
She might not be that welcome in parts of England.
Alright.
She's just not welcome anyway.
See you for the next part, everybody.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah.